Okay, I believe we have that issue fixed and that someone will let us know if we don't. And for those of who are listening and watching today from our YouTube link, I'll let you know that we just got the audio restored. All you've missed so far is me introducing the case. We are on the record in case number 2024-00290, which is a siting board case regarding merchant generation to be located in Madisonville, Hopkins County. And we were just about to have entry of appearance of counsel. So, Mr. Osterloh for the applicant.
Yes. Good morning, Madam Chair. Todd Osterloh and Rebecca Price with Sturgill, Turner, Barker, and Maloney on behalf of KYMEA. Along with us are here today, KYMEA's General Counsel, Charles Musson, is on the call. He's with the law firm of Rubin and Hayes out of Louisville. In terms of our witnesses, we have 7 planned witnesses. That's Doug Bresch, Tyler Marshall, Jeremy James, Dave Parzek, Josh Coburn, Paul Coombs, and Richard Kirkland. And I'll also know that I see Madisonville Mayor Cotton is on the call. It's my understanding that he wanted to provide public comment in advance of today's hearing.
Yep. That'll be what we get to next. Good morning, Mayor. So we don't have any interveners in this case. Counsel for siting board.
Nicole Carr.
And I've been advised that public notice has been given and filed into the record.
That's correct.
Any outstanding motions besides the one motion for confidential treatment?
No, Chair.
Okay. Now, we'll move on to the public comment portion. Anyone wishing to provide public comment may do so by following the instructions located on our website at psc.ky.gov. Written comments may always be submitted by sending an email to psc.comment@ky.gov. Let the record show that the instructions and link to provide public comments have been posted on the website for at least the past day. And we did receive official notice that we had at least one public comment. And we'll allow Mayor Cotton to give his testimony in just a moment. It should be noted that comments may always be submitted on the PSC's website at psc.ky.gov. And I understand in any case proceeding proposing the construction of a project such as this, there may be strong feelings and opinions, and I ask that as public comment is provided today that we be respectful and mindful of time limits. I'll just set a 10-minute time limit this morning since we only have one commenter. And this is an important opportunity for the members of the community in which the solar project is proposed to be built to state their positions. And again, the siting board is here to listen. And when you speak, please first provide your name and address. And with that, Mr. Cotton, if you're ready, please proceed.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak on behalf of this project. Just wanted to kind of reach out to this morning and let you all know the relationship that we've been able to have with this organization. They have been into our community numerous times for site visits, public hearings, meeting with adjoining property owners, just making sure that there are no unanswered questions with this project. Very complimentary of how they've handled even our council and the questions that our city council have had on this project. It is definitely a project that the city of Madisonville supports. We are excited about the fact that this organization is, in our opinion, a leader in the energy sector. It's been very humbling to watch this process from the beginning and the amount of work that they have put in to make sure that we are all given the information necessary to make the decisions on this project for the community. It is going to be in an area that is not highly populated. It is right next door to our wastewater treatment plant. It is in an area that would not be developed in the future for any type of residential neighborhoods, naturally being right next to the sewer plant. There is some great opportunities there. It will be close to, I see Mr. Hammock on from the economic development. That's right across from the area where the new police academy will be building, and are fully aware of this project. We are here to answer any questions that you may have. I am not going to take your full 10 minutes. I do appreciate it. I know that there are some on this Zoom call that would be surprised that I don't take the full 10 minutes. But we are very supportive of this project, and I'm very thankful of the work and relationship of each of the members of the KYMEA team. Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you so much, Mayor Cotton. And if you want to go ahead and log off, you can just watch as much as you'd like on by clicking on the link on PSC's website.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. All right, and I don't see anyone in the courtroom giving public comments. So I believe we're ready to proceed with presentation of the evidence. And Mr. Osterloh, if you're ready, at this time you may call your first witness.
Yes, thank you. Our first witness is Doug Baresh.
Okay. And could you, sir, raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give is true and correct under penalty of perjury?
Yes.
Thank you. You may lower your hand. And if you would begin by letting us know what documents you have with you for reference and your full name and business address.
I do not have any documents. My full name is Doug Bursch. I'm the president and CEO of Kentucky Municipal Energy Agency, 1700 East Point Parkway, Louisville, Kentucky, 40223.
All right, Ms. Counsel, you may ask.
Good morning, Doug. Can you please state your title with KYMEA?
Yes, I'm the president and CEO.
And can you describe what your involvement has been with this project?
So this project is for the Kentucky Municipal Energy Agency to fulfill its power supply needs. So the project was put into place as part of our long-term planning process and approved by the board. So the first step we did was to go to the board with this project, among other options. They chose this project. So our involvement to start with was the selection of the process. I've been throughout the process, both in the siting, selection, on all the engineering meetings, and on economic analysis portions of it, as well as the community involvement.
And throughout this proceeding, did you sponsor responses to various data requests?
Yes.
And subject to the changes that have already been submitted to the siting board, are you aware of any other changes or corrections that need to be made?
There are none.
And do you adopt that information as your testimony here today?
Yes.
Thank you. Madam Chair, that's all the questions I have at this time. He is available for questioning.
Thank you. Staff?
The most recent site plan was submitted on January 10th, 2025. Is that the most up-to-date site plan for this project?
It is. There'll be maybe some changes when we get to the substation portion, excuse me, portion of it. But the site plan itself is solidified now.
What is the anticipated start date for construction for this project?
We'll start in several months for moving dirt and starting the dirt work on it. The construction itself will be later into next year as we get into the heavier construction, but it'll start with dirt work and then foundation work and then moving into a heavier construction phase.
What date do you anticipate that to begin?
So we expect it to be the construction work for the dirt work in April.
How long do you anticipate that construction will last?
Well, it'll go all the way through the end of 2026. And then in the early part of 2027, we'll have a commissioning and startup phase for the facility. So it's about 27 months total.
And in that 27 months, does that also include the construction of the natural gas pipeline?
It does.
What is the acreage for the plant site?
So that side of it, so they're on two different sides of the railroad tracks. The plant side is around 13 acres, and the other side is, well, excuse me, it's about 8 acres where the site is itself, and then 13 on the other side for the substation. The overall plant size for that entire plot of land is about 22 acres.
Are there any structures that are going to be demolished during construction?
There are not.
Okay. And does that also include no demolishing of any structures for the natural gas pipeline?
That's correct.
Are there going to be any access roads that are going to have to be built in order to accommodate this project?
Well, just access roads into the site themselves, but other than that, all the roads that are existing are the only roads we need.
How far back from the road, AC Slayton Road, will the actual building be built?
I think it's about 300 feet to the engine hall to the street.
Okay. Is it accurate that this site is located on a reclaimed coal mine land?
That's correct.
Do you know when the last time the mine was actually mined?
I'm not precise, but it'll be like 1965, somewhere in that neighborhood.
According to data response question number 29, the engine hall is going to be a pre-engineered metal building. Is that still accurate?
That's correct.
What type of wall and roof system is going to be utilized for the engine hall building?
They refer to it as a sandwich board type wall. And so that helps with the sound. That's the purpose of that wall. We haven't selected the exact layout yet, or who's going to provide that building. So it's still out for bid. We'll be going out for bid.
Will the engine hall have silencers?
The engine hall will have silencers both in the up in the roof area through the fans that come in, and then of course in the walls themselves. So the effort is to keep it as quiet as we possibly can.
What other mitigation measures as far as noise in the actual engine hall will Kentucky Municipal Agency utilize?
Ones that I mentioned. So there'll be in the ridge roof area, there'll be some ways to suppress the noise, as well as the input fans that bring the air in.
For this project, how was it determined where vegetative screening will be placed?
So we need to clear the site of the existing trees, and then we'll come back with vegetative screening. And it's not going to be a lot. We don't want to have a lot of debris that gets into the radiators, because these have radiators towards the back. So we'll have some like dogwood type trees and those things in the front. We'll also have signage in the front that'll have some vegetation around it. That'll be more aesthetics as much as screening.
How many acres of trees or brush will be removed from the actual plant site and the substation site?
I believe there's about 8 acres of trees from the plant site. There's none on the substation side. It's already cleared of trees.
How many acres that could be removed as far as the gas line route?
We don't anticipate there'll be little trees or anything removed on that route.
Okay. Are there going to be any mature trees that are going to be cleared?
Yeah, the trees that are on the side are mature trees.
Have there been any requests to change any type of vegetative screening from non-participating landowners?
There has not.
Do you expect any updates or changes to your landscape plans?
It's not finalized yet, so there'll be some as we lay that out and to make that available as anybody requests. But right now we're in the phase of laying out the plant site and in what we call the 30% drawings phase. So there'll be a more detailed vegetative plan that goes together.
Will the project substation have its own separate fencing?
It will.
How many hours is proposed for the RICE engines that are anticipated that it will operate annually?
So in our simulations, we're seeing somewhere in the neighborhood of 5,000 hours in a year. So they'll run pretty heavy during the daytime type hours and largely during the week hours as well. You wouldn't see as much in the evenings and night and on the weekends.
Is the primary purpose of this project to be able to provide power supply to your municipalities and your members?
Exactly. Yes, that is the purpose.
Who owns the land that the RICE facility is going, or the engine hall is going to be located?
The agency, Kentucky Municipal Energy Agency.
Who is going to own the land that the substation is going to be located on?
So we'll originally buy that land, but the way substations work is largely that'll be turned over to LG&E, and we'll have a portion of that what we'll pay for on that facility of our side of the facility, and then what connects to the interconnection part will be LG&E's. So largely 80% is owned by LG&E. We're 20% of the equipment inside there, and then the land is deeded over to them.
At what point will the land actually be deeded over to them?
I'm not sure. I think it's after completion.
Who will employ the employees who are actually going to be working in the facility?
KYMEA. You're talking about after it's operational?
That's correct.
Yes, KYMEA.
Can you describe to the siting board how the RICE generators will be controlled and from where?
So they'll be controlled locally. So that we'll have staffing that's in there that has a controls room, and they'll operate those engines to follow a load signal. We do have an outside firm that we use for our 24-hour operation. So they'll let us know that when we need to have a supply and demand balance issue, in other words, our load of our members needs to match what our generation is and what our resources are. So they will assist in what the needs are. They'll give a signal to that control area of how much power they need to produce.
How often will maintenance tests be run to ensure that the RICE generators are operating?
Oh, I'm sorry, just regular maintenance?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a very sophisticated process in terms of what they do for monitoring. So we'll have monitoring to know when certain spark plugs need to be changed out, filters need to be changed out. There's also an hourly maintenance schedule that we'll follow. So routinely you'll have maintenance at maybe 2,000 hours, 8,000 hours, 16,000 hours, that type of thing. So there's just like the engines that you would have on your car, it's time for an oil change, or it's time to change transmission fluid, those things. Very similar process that we would follow for hours run in this particular case.
Can you explain to the siting board what the responsibility of the Warcilla on-site advisor would be?
Yeah, so when I talked about staffing before, and thank you for mentioning that, we're going to have 14, most likely, we're still working on our staffing plan, KYMEA employees, and there's one Wartzilla employee that we will have on site for perhaps 3 years. They would be an expert on how to operate these engines, anything that has to go with both maintenance and for just regular operations. And that person is very critical to our startup piece. Once we felt like our staff is fully trained, and then that Wartzilla person will no longer be there.
And I believe you've answered this, but once the facility is operational, is it going to be 14 full-time employees that will be operating?
That's what we anticipate. And then the Wartzilla. employee.
As far as setbacks, Madisonville Code of Ordinance, Section 156.031 provides a minimum lot setback of 20 feet from the front, 25 feet from the rear of the lot, and 25 feet per side. Is this project in compliance with those setbacks?
It is.
Can you, do you know the closest residence as far as the proposed pipeline? What is the closest residence to that proposed pipeline, or the distance?
I don't remember the distance offhand, I'm sorry. It is in our data requests, but if we can get that for you.
Okay, if we were request that in a post-hearing data request, you would be able to provide that distance from the closest residence to the natural gas pipeline.
We will, before this hearing's over, we can find that
Okay.
point to which specific one it was. I'm sorry, I don't know if, I
That's
can't remember that off accurately.
Do you recall, even though you don't know the distance, are you aware of any conversations that Kentucky Municipal Energy have had with that resident? Are they aware of this project? Are they aware of the pipeline to their residents?
Yeah, of course, we're making everybody aware that's along that path. The closest one we would have would be the interconnection point when we first hook into Texas Gas. And we certainly had conversations with that resident because we need an easement on that property that we've already discussed with them.
And when you say, like, as far as that resident, have you had face-to-face conversations, telephone conversations? How's that?
It's been yeah, our consultant has been out there when they blocked the site, they met face-to-face with them.
What about other residents in the vicinity of the natural gas pipeline? Have letters been sent to them? Are they aware of the new construction of the pipeline?
Let me get back to you on that one. If the letters have been sent, yeah, we certainly plan on we will obviously contact everyone along that path to make sure they know, and we've identified who all of them are.
Okay. Would you be able to provide in a post-hearing data response any communication that Kentucky Municipal Energy has had with those residents?
Yeah, we'll do that in this hearing as well. We'll just we'll get back to you. But I have all the people available to answer that precisely. I just don't want to misspeak.
Okay. What is the distance from the closest non-participating property to the actual fencing, engine hall, or the substation for this project?
Yeah, you're saying from the fencing of the substation to the nearest resident?
That's correct.
Yeah, well, I'll have to get you that one.
Okay.
Precise distance as well.
According to data response question number 29, there is a house trailer that's 800 feet from the equipment on the plant site. When you're looking at that distance of 800 feet, are you talking about 800 feet from the fencing of the engine hall to the property boundary line of that trailer?
Yes.
Okay.
You're talking about the site, where the engine hall to the trailers location as well. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
Is that, have you had conversations with that landowner?
We have.
Okay. Can you describe to the siting board some of the contact that Kentucky Municipal Energy Agency has had with the executives of Hopkins County?
Well, we certainly met with so this is inside the Madisonville city limits. So we've met with the mayor and the city council. This was Madisonville property that we're purchasing for this site. So we've certainly worked with them for on a number of things, not only the purchase of that land, but also the roads and around it. We also have worked with the judge executive on what the roads, how we're going to handle the roads and moving equipment over those. So we've had pretty extensive conversations to date. There'll be a lot more to come. But this is an important piece for us to be a good neighbor, to make sure that that this facility fits into the community, and that's so we've had both public hearings, of course, and then meetings with local officials.
Can you detail any public involvement or outreach for the project?
Well, so we had our public hearing as one. Our other outreach mechanisms are, we have a website that describes the project. We've had newspaper articles that announce the project. We also want to make sure that we keep people knowing what's going on in the community. And so we'll have press releases, we'll have a groundbreaking. So a number of things that try to get the community involved. We think this is a very good project for the city of Madisonville and our other members. And I think, as you heard from the mayor, he agrees with that, and the council agrees with that. So we'll just continue to make sure the public is aware of what's going on with this project.
Have there been any complaints or concerns from non-participating landowners?
There have not.
Have there been any requests from anyone in the community or officials or residents to change the project layout?
No, there have not.
Who will hire the employees for construction? Will it be an EPC, a contractor, or Kentucky Municipal Energy?
So the EPC will hire all the subcontractors. However, that process feeds through both our owner's engineer and the agency. So we all contracts are presented to us. So they'll go out for bids for the subcontractors, but the contracts will then be signed by us as through a competitive bidding process per the rules of Kentucky bidding for us.
What company will employ the individuals that will be responsible for ensuring compliance during construction?
So we will, at the end of the day, we're responsible for compliance during construction, but our EPC they'll be responsible as well contractually, as will Wartzilla, and any subcontractors they have will be there'll be contracts between those. So there's we want to make sure that everybody knows we're responsible. However, there's a number of contracts that link all these together.
Is it accurate that Kentucky Municipal Energy will also be responsible for ensuring compliance during the actual operations of the facility?
That's correct.
Is Kentucky Municipal Energy Agency owned by any other company or parent companies?
It is not.
How important is it for this project to hire local workers?
So when we did site selections, we looked for a number of things, and local workers was one of them. We wanted a large enough community that would have the technical expertise available, skilled workers to be able to work there. So that was always part of our plan, to hire local workers in one of our member cities. In this case, it's Madisonville. So it's very important to us to make sure that we have helped the community out and help ourselves out. These are skilled workers, and this is a plant that needs to run efficiently and productively, and we think we have a good workforce right there.
What is going to be done to encourage the EPC contractor to hire local workers?
Well, so when I was talking about local workers, I was talking about the operations. The local workers for the EPC, that'll be a selection that they go through as part of their competitive bidding. But however, we always need to keep in mind, perhaps there's not necessarily the right skill set for what needs to be done on certain aspects of it that are local. For instance, concrete is a very local piece, so they'll be able to hire both local workers, companies for the concrete. You wouldn't hire that far. When they go out for electrical packages, mechanical, there's a good chance some of those will be local, but we don't really know for sure yet.
Can you describe to the siting board what phase this project is in as far as the interconnection process with the transmission line?
So it's coming along further now. We had to submit what's called a cluster study. And that study was submitted last year. The results will be done in May. And that will let us know the configuration of hooking in what type of breaker scheme that we need to hook into the transmission line. So within a few months, we'll have that phase of it done. And that was basically kind of a year-long process when we went in for our application for interconnection.
Has a facility study been completed?
That it has not.
When do you anticipate that to begin?
When the cluster study's done and it tells us what pieces need to be what kind of equipment we'll need and what configuration we'll need, then they'll work on the facility study.
Did they give you an anticipation how long that facility studies would take to be completed?
Yeah, they did. I don't know it off the top of my head. There is actually a tariff-based schedule of when each of these processes is completed that we would follow. So there are certain studies, the interconnection, and then what comes after that. And we can get that for you before this hearing's over.
What is the wattage of the transmission line going to be, and what is the length of the line?
So it'll be the voltage at 69,000 volt line that we're connecting into, if I'm answering your question correctly.
Yes. And what's the length of the line, the transmission line going to be?
So we're connecting right at a point where the transmission line's already there. So there is no additional transmission line
Okay.
other than the short segment from the substation to connect into the existing line.
What's the length of that short segment?
I don't know offhand how much that'll be. I think because we don't know when the exact layout will be of the substation, but it's right there in the corner of where Bean Cemetery and AC Slayton come together. There's transmission going both directions, so it'll be a very short length. From our facility, our site, to that substation is about 500 feet of transmission line that we need to hook into the substation from our facility. And then from there, it's just a short length to connect.
What is the distance of the substation to the nearest residence?
I'll need to get back to you on that.
Okay.
I want to say 100 feet, but yeah, we need to verify that.
Has a conversation, have you guys engaged in a conversation with that landowner regarding the substation being close to their home?
Yes, and to be clear, that's the same landowner that we talked about earlier that's closest to the site itself.
Has any type of an agreement or been reached with that landowner?
So there's no agreement that when we've talked to them, they're not interested necessarily agreement. They've actually signed a letter in support of the project. They think it's good as well. But our agreement with them is to continue to have conversations with them. We certainly want to be a good neighbor. It's very sparsely populated there, but they are the ones that are the one resident that's close. So we want to make sure that we satisfy any concerns they have and mitigate to the extent we can any issues.
And so is that line is not going to go across any of their property? Is that correct?
It already does.
Okay.
So there's
Okay.
already, the line that's existing is the one we're tapping into.
Okay. Are you able to provide the siting board with any preliminary sketches of the proposed transmission line support structures?
We have, in concept, we have some, but it'd be inaccurate to probably, we can provide whatever asked of, but we have conceptual designs, but we don't know what those will look like until the study is completed in May.
Okay. If we would request that and just in a post-hearing data request, would you be able to provide just those conceptual designs with the understanding
No,
that
absolutely.
those?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Can you explain to the siting board how the proposed transmission route was actually determined?
So we didn't necessarily determine a route. when we cited the plant, we had a number of criteria in place. We wanted to be near transmission that would support a 75 megawatt plant. We wanted to be near natural gas. We wanted to be close to a member community if possible. So as it turned out, when we looked at the siting for the transmission piece of it, it just naturally fell out that that's one of our close, areas to be able to develop for this project.
Who's going to be responsible for any costs associated with the interconnection?
Largely, that's going to be LG&E. With some of the cost will be ours, but most of it is going to be LG&E's cost and Kentucky Utilities.
Have any geotechnical reports been completed for this project?
So we had two different geotechnical reports. The first one was we did long ago regarding the underground mines. And so that report has been completed. As for the geotech for the site itself, I'll have to get back to, we'll have to respond to that. Well, the people are here can tell us if there's a report
Okay.
that's available for that.
Who will be the best witness to ask that question to?
Well, I was probably the best one, so we'll just need to respond on that.
Okay. As far as the natural gas pipeline, a revised route was submitted to the siting board on December 5th. Is this the most up-to-date pipeline route?
It is the most up-to-date. It's still not quite finalized, but we believe that's the most accurate path we're going to take.
At what point do you believe that route will be finalized?
When the engineers are completed their process for both the connection point and the routing suitability, that should be done, I believe, in several months.
How could the route, or is there a chance that the route could possibly change compared to the route that was actually submitted to the siting board?
So it's largely to be in that same area. Any changes would have to do with they need to navigate around something like, for instance, there's a pond in there. They've moved the route. We moved the route to miss that. But otherwise, there's not going to be a largely big change to it. There could be a change when it gets closer to the substation site because we want to make sure we don't interfere with what LG&E would want in terms of where the gas pipeline runs near the substation. So there's just a few of those types of crossing points. And then, of course, we need to work with the railroad on that crossing point as well.
And so the actual route that it's going across as far as the property, is it accurate that the property is owned by the city of Madisonville? Is that correct?
Presently is, yeah.
Presently. And is there one parcel of land where it's a private landowner?
Yes.
Has an agreement been entered into with that property owner?
So we've talked to them about an easement because that's where we're going to connect at. I'm not clear if we've actually entered into a total agreement yet. I do not believe we have, other than the verbal agreement.
What is the depth of the line that's going to be buried at?
I do not know that.
If I would be able to ask that in a post-hearing data request, would you be able to respond to that?
I think we can respond today as soon as we confer with the people that are here.
Okay. Who is going to be the natural gas supplier for the facility?
This is Texas Gas is where we're tapping into.
Is there a contract in place regarding Texas Gas supplying that to Kentucky Municipal Energy?
Not yet. It's a tariff rate type connection. Okay. So, yeah. So we just they can't deny us tapping into it.
Who will own and operate the natural gas line from the facility to the actual interconnection point?
We will, Kentucky Municipal Energy Agency.
Is public financing going to be involved in the construction of this transmission gas line?
Uh, Yes, so we've sold bonds, so it'll be our bond sale.
Who will be responsible for working with um, the federal regulatory agencies as far as FERC regarding this project?
Oh, that would be the agency.
According to data request 2, question 45, there are several residences that are 500 feet to 1,000 feet um, from the pipeline. Have any of those residents been notified by mail or email or any type of communication of the natural gas pipeline?
Let me confer on that one and get back to you. Today, we'll respond today.
There's also a farm that's 190 feet away. Do you know if there's been any communication with that resident?
I believe that's the same resident that we're working with on the easement, so yes.
Okay. According to data request number 2, question 7, it says that Kentucky Municipal Energy Agency has not requested a PHMSA operator ID. Has that been completed yet?
Not yet.
At what point will that be completed?
I don't have a timeline for you on that. I mean, it'll be part of our overall plan of as we're building that line. So certainly before the project is completed, but probably within this year.
What regulatory approval does Kentucky Municipal Energy anticipate needing for the new natural gas pipeline?
I don't believe we need any regulatory approvals. We can verify that.
Has Kentucky Municipal Energy Agency had any contact with EPA regarding the proposed project?
So this wouldn't be under the EPA's, under the state of Kentucky.
I'm sorry,
Cool.
under the state in Kentucky, I'm sorry. And so you have had contact regarding the permitting and the air emission control. Can you describe to the siting board a little bit about where you are in that process?
Yeah, so there's a number of permits we went through. It started with of course, the Corps of Engineers and any wetlands, and of course, there's more testimony on that today, and so I won't get into some of that. And then the air permit as well as started off with a letter requesting, the limits that we want to have for the permit itself. So that we're in the phase of working on the air permit right now. A lot of the other issues have already been taken care of.
Where is this project? This project is going to use the railroad, CX railroad, in order to be able to transport the rice generators from Texas. Where is this project in that process of the CSX permitting?
Yeah, so there's really not a permitting on it. There's a loading site, Fortner LP, that it's been proposed, but let me kind of give a little background. When we made had the proposal from Wartzilla, it comes delivered to the site with the engines all the way to our site. And so as part of that bidding process, they needed to come up with a preliminary site so they could put together their bid package. Their final logistics team, when working with both the railroads and the offloading site, will be happen later this year as they get closer to the point when the engines are ready to be shipped and installed and brought to the site itself. So we'll know more later, but they don't have a lot of information on it until maybe mid-July.
Kentucky Municipal Energy Agency committed to working with CSX to coordinate as far as scheduling the delivery.
So once the engines are offloaded onto gold hoppers, they're called. They hold a lot of different weight spread out over a lot of tires for moving big, heavy equipment, down the roads. When we cross railroad tracks, we'll certainly need to work with the CSX and P&L and to make sure that we're coordinated with them and all the other local officials as to move that equipment down the road.
Are there going to be any noise mitigation measures as far as the construction of the natural gas pipeline?
We don't anticipate any, other than the standard things you would expect on the equipment having the best technology for, mufflers and so for anything that is noise attenuating, that kind of thing. But other than that, nothing over and above that.
Is it still accurate that Kentucky Municipal Energy does not have any pending judicial or administrative as far as environmental compliance?
Correct.
Can you describe to the siting board the complaint resolution program for this project?
Yeah, so this is an important part for us. We want to make sure, again, that we're good neighbors. So we have a resolution process that we've laid out for both the construction piece of it and once the units are up and going. It's available on our website already for people to go and see both how the construction process is moving along. So it's informational, as well as a comment area for inquiries and comments, complaints that could be filled out by anybody. But we would start with if the complaints need to be fed through the agency. So we'll have available numbers and websites on site on signage so people know who to contact.
Who will actually receive? Would that be someone there locally that will actually receive the complaint and process that complaint?
Well, locally, if you mean our Louisville headquarters, or do you mean, yeah, that's where it'll be, in our Louisville headquarters. If the complaint is regarding something with the EPC, let's say someone says there's the trash bins are full or something, we will certainly work with the EPC and our owner's engineer to resolve those. If it's something different that is more of a non-EPC issue and has to do with something that the agency should handle, we would handle that directly.
Is there a time period from when you receive a complaint from a resident that you would like to have that complaint resolved?
We'd like to respond in the same day. The resolution, of course, depends on the nature of the complaint. But our goal would be to handle every complaint very quickly and respond very quickly.
As far as your decommissioning, the decommissioning plan provides that underground components below 3 feet will remain in place. For this project, are there going to be underground components that are below 3 feet?
Well, remember the foundations for engines like this will go down to bedrock. Maybe we might be down 10 feet.
Okay.
So that you would go down to 3 feet and then say we don't need to go any further than that, and you would leave that concrete and that piering in place down there. So that's the nature of what's lower than that.
Okay. And as far as the decommissioning of the natural gas transmission line, that's going to remain in place even after the facility ceases to operate?
No, that's correct.
Are there still plans to enter into a pilot agreement?
What kind of agreement?
Pilot, payment in lieu of taxes?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, yeah. We've already have an agreement with the city to do that.
This project represents a $130 million local investment. What is the total cost just for the plant facility?
So that $130 million is the cost of the plant facility. Are you talking about including the EPC?
No, not including the EPC, just the cost to construct the plant.
Oh, so I guess I could work backwards a little bit. The engines themselves are about $55 million, something in that neighborhood. So the difference between that and there's other pieces of equipment that you would start to subtract for to get down the construction cost. So I don't know. It's we can get you a better number. The EPC is available for that. And we can get you that number today.
Okay.
But there's when you look at these kinds of projects, there's a package of both what the equipment and then what the installation is, and they're kind of bundled together in some cases.
No further questions at this time, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much. Next, we'll go to Deputy Secretary Lyons for any questions.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Mr. Bursch. Good to see you
Good
again.
morning.
Nicole was very thorough. I don't know that I have a whole lot to add, but I did want to get some clarification on a couple of things. First, Doug, if you could just explain the need for this project and why you all chose this particular type of project for your energy needs, and a little bit of background about your energy portfolio, so on and so forth, and the needs of the municipalities that you represent.
Okay, I'm glad you asked that. The way we look at the world going forward is there's going to be a need for, and MISO says this as well, the RTO to the north, for fast, flexible generation. So we have an 86 megawatt Ashwood solar project that is coming online very soon for us. And the intermittency of renewable energy is something that needs to be chased by something like these types of units that can start and stop on a dime, basically. So we can start up these reciprocating engines very quickly, follow any intermittency with the solar and shut them off if we needed to, or if this cloud comes over, we can adjust accordingly. But back to what you asked on our portfolio. So right now we purchase power from largely from the MISO area through Big Rivers Energy, for Duke Energy, and also from Hallador, 3 sources up in MISO. And we bring that power down that's largely coal-based into the LG&E system from the MISO region. We also have SEPA Hydro, Southeastern Power Administration Hydro from TVA, as part of our entitlements from our members, and peaking capacity from both Paducah Power and from the city of Paris. As those contracts drop off through time, we felt like the need for a very fast reacting type plant like these reciprocating engines fits in our portfolio much better with our solar generation. And of course, as coal units are retired, our source of buying from the MISO market is drying up. So there's a large number of studies that we went through our integrated resourcing planning process to ensure we pick the right plan to kind of fit the members' needs in the future.
Thank you. Very informative. Going back to I must have missed that this site was on a former mine site. Was it surface mining and underground, or just all underground?
Just all underground at that location.
Do you know the depth of those works by chance?
Yeah, it's like 160 was one of the seams, and there's one under that was like 250 feet.
And I take it you all have not submitted that geotech report, or have you? I didn't understand.
I'm not sure if we've submitted that one as part of. We certainly can. That report was one that is different than the geotech that we're doing for the soil conditions and building the facility. This was one, when we did site selection, we wanted to be sure that we're picking an appropriate site because it had mining activity, and of course we knew that. So we had a geotech report that was done, including taking core samples in that area and going down to just get the conditions of what type of soil goes all the way down to those mines.
Do you know if those mines were left, were they room and pillar, with pillars left for
They were room and pillar. We don't believe they did any retreat mining, so it is room and pillar with the pillar still in place. I will mention that when we looked at the site maps, there's a large barrier pillar right in the middle of where we're locating the plant. So we were very pleased with that. So as the room and pillars were scattered around our site, there's a barrier pillar that we're putting the plant right on top of to make sure it's a secure location. So it's much wider than the rest of the mining activity.
Okay, We always worry about subsidence, obviously, with
We
these
do
old
too.
works. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Um, as far as the construction for the pipeline route, I think you said you didn't anticipate any approvals or any environmental approvals. Is that pipeline about a mile long? Is that what I understand?
Yes, that's right.
Won't cross any or won't be bored under any creeks or go across any creeks?
I can verify this, but I'm pretty sure that we didn't need any Corps of Engineer type approvals on that aspect of it. But I want to make sure, we'll answer that before this meeting's over to make sure we get the right response to that.
Okay. And you said there's only one private landowner that the pipeline will pass through?
Yeah, the rest of it goes along the landfill site that the city of Madisonville is at the present time.
Gotcha. I had one other question. Oh, regarding the pipeline. So will it be regulated by the commission under their gas safety program?
I'll need to get back to you on that. I'm not sure about the who oversees that. There's certainly under safety, we would I think we'd be involved in certainly abiding by all the state regulations like everybody else would, but I need to verify that.
Yeah, I think y'all might be regulated by the commission, but I'm not sure either. That's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Jansen Hammock, do you have questions?
Chair, yes, I just have a few questions for you, kind of regarding the workforce comments that Nicole had already mentioned before. The first one is regarding the 14 operation employees you're going to have long term. How will you approach hiring those locally? Is there a certain method you'll go about running ads or something like that?
You know, we haven't worked through that yet, but we've talked somewhat about working with the local community college there as well to see. But we're going to probably try to get a mix of people that have some experience with, you know, if you're an engine, if you know, an engine mechanic, for instance, that's a good skill set that we would want. The people that are operators can be trained to be operators, but we'd want a skill set that could, you know, read dials and do those types of mechanical type things.
Will you be contacting any of the local trade associations for like training employees or just employees to hire kind of along that vein?
Certainly, yes.
And then my last question is just, are there any certifications you're going to require up front for hiring these employees, or will they be mostly trained by that temporary 3-year Workzilla employee?
Well, they'll be trained through a number of so that the employee on site will be a good resource. But there's a training facility in Florida that Workzilla has for week-long trainings that we'll send everybody to make sure they, and there'll be ongoing training as well. It's a very expensive endeavor for us to make sure we want it operated properly. So we'll make sure there's plenty of training for all of the employees.
Thank you. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And has our local ad hoc member Janet Wyatt joined us?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, good. And this is your turn now, Ms. Wyatt, if you have any questions for this witness.
I do not. Thank you.
No problem. So the other commissioners aren't here today, and that leaves me. I want to take the opportunity to thank my staff who made it in today, by the way, legal and admin and IT as well. They go above and beyond every day, but it's quite noticeable today, and I appreciate them. So, Mr. Bursch, since we don't regulate municipal utilities, I'm finding a whole lot of this kind of fascinating and different from what we normally see. Did you say that you're a member participating in the MISO market?
No, we participate in the MISO market by buying power from that suppliers in that area. We are not necessarily a MISO market participant since we don't have any load in that area.
Okay. And I was looking at some information about your organization. You have members all the way across the state.
We do.
Yeah, so all the way in East Kentucky, are they connected to one another by lines and able to share power, or just members for the benefits of membership and not necessarily connected?
No, they're connected. So we buy transmission service through Kentucky Utilities. So through FERC Order 888 years ago, it opened up access where every transmission owner has to allow others to use that transmission line. So we pay Kentucky Utilities a fee, the network's transmission service fee, and all of our members were connected to that system, with the exception of Falmouth, who's on the PJM system. So each of those members, if we put in solar power or this facility into the transmission network, in essence, they're drawing it out in their own cities, if you want to kind of think it that way. You can't really track electrons per se, but the idea is our supply and demand balance of what we put in to the system and what we withdraw is balanced out, but it's done over a connected network system that's owned and operated by Kentucky Utilities.
Okay. Will there be any condemnation for the transmission line for this project?
No.
What generation does KYMEA or its members actually own? You said there's a solar project underway and this project as well. Hydropower, are those owned?
So this is our first owned project.
Okay. But the solar one, KYMEA will also own?
No, the solar is a RWE, owns the Ashwood project. We have a 20-year purchase power agreement with that project,
Okay,
and we're the sole off-taker.
gotcha. So do you anticipate, I know that you intend to supply your municipal members with this, this generation. Do you also anticipate having PPA agreements with KU and LG&E in the area?
We don't with them. We'll have purchase power agreements with, continue to have some up in the MISO region, but our portfolio is evolving through time like everyone. So we have contracts that drop off and new ones and start and so forth. So we have a contract that ends in 2027, another couple that end in 2029 with some extension capabilities. So as we kind of balance out our portfolio, we're not sure where the next purchase power agreement will come from. It could be that we need to, we'll build more generation if that ends up being the most economical and reliable choice. But as for now, we kind of look at a mix of purchase power agreements and ownership.
Okay, thank you for that. Regarding the substation part of this project, you're purchasing a substation and then deeding it to LG&E KU. Who are you purchasing from?
We're not purchasing, we're paying to have it built. So there are options for us to actually buy some of the pieces of equipment ahead of time, design it, have it built, and then we get reimbursed by Kentucky Utilities, LG&E.
Don't
And then we
interrupt
turn.
you, but I was talking about the site.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll let you ask again.
No,
I'm
it's
sorry.
okay, just the site, where the substation site will be located. Who is that being purchased from?
Oh, that's being purchased from the city of Madisonville.
Okay.
The land itself. I'm sorry.
And then it will be eventually deeded to KU, do I understand that correctly?
That's correct.
Okay, and is that, has there already been a monetary arrangement worked out for what that's going to cost? Is that something that's gonna happen eventually or right away?
So the monetary arrangement has already taken place with the city of Madisonville. As for, I'm not sure about what we've worked out so far with LG&E KU
Okay,
on the deed.
but as far as the cost for building the substation, that's all gonna be KYMEA?
The initial cost, we're going to pay for a lot of that and then be reimbursed. And that's to expedite this project to the extent we can.
And then if the substation is deeded to KU and LG&E, they'll then own the substation, but you don't intend for the generation portion to be owned by KU ever?
No, no, the generation, you're talking about the generation side itself?
Right.
Yeah, that'll always be ours. That's the reason that KU owns the substation is it's their transmission network that flows in and out of that substation. So that's a switch yard in essence, where they can switch which way the power flows, both into Madisonville or remember they're the owner, they're the operator of the transmission network and the owner of it. So we're simply building a connection point to that, and that power just flows through that substation with breakers and that open and close to flow the power in certain directions. So the way we got involved in this is to expedite that project to be able to interconnect to the grid, because it is our generation projects that connecting into it is how, so it's seeming kind of an odd arrangement, but it turns over that they own and operate that substation as well. We won't have access to operate that substation at all.
Okay. Thank you for clearing that up. And then Deputy Secretary Lyons was asking you about the underground mine works underneath the plant. There's a wastewater treatment plant right next door, as I understand it. Is that also located on that old mine works?
It is.
Well, that's interesting. And how long has that been in operation?
I think it's been around 25 years, something like that.
Without issues as far
It gave
as you know?
it gave us confidence on the site because of
Okay.
it's been there so long. Yeah.
Okay, I see. All right. I understand that you've agreed to abide by all the local ordinances regarding planning and zoning.
Yes.
And then, since the time of the original filing, there was a motion for deviation filed. Can you explain that?
Can you give me more information? Which one are you referring to? We've had some changes. Is that what you're referring to? Some of the it's.
Let me get to the part of my notes about that. I think initially I had been told there wasn't a deviation, but then there was one filed.
They included in their response to the consultant's report.
Okay.
Maybe Todd could add some.
Madam Chair, if I can interject, I'm happy to.
Sure, or
it-
if another witness is better, I can wait and ask that later.
But it's primarily a legal argument in terms of initially we viewed what's, in terms of the state statute, because we were in compliance with the local planning and zoning regulations, that we wouldn't need a separate deviation because the local ordinances would control. The consultant in his report, Harvey's economics report, suggested that the siting board should consider whether there needs to be a statutory deviation based on the pipeline, the natural gas pipeline that would extend across a couple property boundaries. And it's our position that that's not necessary. Underground utility infrastructure across the Commonwealth doesn't have to comply with setback requirements, just because it would be illogical to require that. It would be impossible to deliver that service, whether it's an underground water pipeline, sewer pipeline, gas pipeline, from one side of the property to the other without going directly through and not having a setback requirement or compliance issue. But if for some reason the siting board were to look at that differently, and for this particular project, say that a setback had to apply to that underground pipeline, that's where we would request a deviation from the statutory setbacks.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. I was trying to figure out why a setback was needed. Okay, well, I think that's all the questions I have, but I'll allow anyone follow-up questions if other people's questions have triggered follow-up staff. Anyone else? Ms. Wyatt?
No, thank you.
Okay, all right then.
Chairman,
Yes,
This is John Will.
Oh, good morning, Commissioner Stacy.
That's all right. I guess you didn't realize I was here.
I did
Uh,
not, but welcome, and
No,
it's your
that's
turn.
okay. No problem. No problem at all. I had just a couple of questions for the last witness, and it shouldn't take but a second. Can you can you tell me what responsibilities that the city has going forward on this project, and what your contract with the city requires them to do going from this point forward?
Yeah, the city, once we purchase the land, they won't have any responsibilities other than normal services that we would pay, support through a pilot, such as fire protection, police, and so forth, removal of snow on the roads, that kind of thing. But other than that, this is the agency's responsibility.
They don't have any responsibilities, any liability, any legal obligations in any way from this point forward?
But they do not.
Okay. Can you tell me just a little bit about your corporate structure? Tell me about the corporation that is contracting with the city.
Okay, so Kentucky Municipal Energy Agency was formed by a membership of municipal electric systems across Kentucky. And for instance, the city of Frankfort is a member, Madisonville, Providence, Barberville, Corbin. They're scattered across the state. The structure is an interlocal cooperation agreement that was developed through KRS. I think it's 210 through 300. 65-210-65-300. So it allowed these cities to work together to develop their own power supply. And so we're known as a joint public agency. So our corporate structure is each of our members has a director that sits on a governing board. And so they govern the agency. So I have 11 members, 11 different directors that direct staff in terms of governance. And then staff, myself and my staff, we run the operations of the agency. So our structure is such, maybe like if you look at other corporate board structures, that's very similar to that, where you're going to have people so they make the decisions, both on power supply, on any expenditures, that kind of thing.
What sourced the funding for this project?
We sold bonds for this project. So we sold some already, and we'll sell a second tranche of completion bonds in maybe a couple of years.
What can you tell me how these bonds were sold? I mean, were they sold to one major investor, or were they?
I think we had about a dozen investors on that. We just sold them last week. So Bank of America was our senior banker on this. So when we sold the bonds, they purchased about 10 million of it, just to give you a flavor, for out of 120 million. But they were sold to a number of different type of entities that are institutional investors. So I think we had one small investor on the retail side, and I can't remember who it was offhand. But that's who bought them, is the investors that are institutional.
Okay, so it's not just big institutional investors. Is that what you're saying?
For the most part, it was. The ones that are going to either invest in the bond market routinely.
Right. Okay. I don't have any other questions, Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anything further from anyone? If not, you may be excused, Mr. Burns.
Oh, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I'm
Yes.
sorry. I was going to do a few redirect questions to maybe follow up and tie up on some loose ends, if that's okay.
I apologize. This is a new format, and you definitely, please, Mr. Osterwell, go right ahead and do your redirect.
Sure. I just want to tie up a few loose ends. Mr. Bursch, you were asked a few questions from Ms. Carr about the natural gas pipeline and the distance to the closest residence. And in response to item 45B of the second request for information, we had indicated that that would be approximately 190 feet to the hill property. Is that, do you have any changes, or is that to the best of your knowledge?
That's the best of my knowledge. Yeah, the reason I, of course, didn't answer those, I didn't remember the precise number off the top of my head, but yeah, that's correct.
Sure. And just to think about this visually, as we're looking at sort of the site plan, the project site would be kind of furthest west, and as you go eastward, then you have the substation or the switchyard site, and further east is the track to where the connecting pipeline would go to Texas Gas, their interstate pipeline to the furthest east. Is that fair?
That is fair, yes.
And that hill property is even further east of the existing Texas Gas pipeline. Is that true?
Well, that's the connection point. So yeah, there's be a section of where we tap into it is in that area.
Gotcha. Okay. So then switching gears to the distances to the the closest mobile home to the project site. In response to item 29 of the second request for information, we indicated from the generating plant site to that mobile home was approximately 800 feet. And I think you were asked a question about, well, what's the difference or what's the distance from the fencing of that site to the mobile home? Do you know roughly if it's 800 feet to the generating facility, what would be the difference there to the fence line?
I do not know that number off.
Okay. But is it fair to say that the fence line is relatively close to the actual generating facility?
Yes, yeah. So there's a road that goes around the facility, and then hugging that road is the fence line.
So maybe 50 feet, give or take?
Yeah, something in that neighborhood.
Okay. And
The
then
road
with
itself
respect
is
to the...
20 feet wide. I'm sorry. The road itself is about 20 feet wide. So, and then there's some gravel on rock on both sides of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then with respect to the switching station, in that same response, item 29 to the second request for information, we'd indicated it was approximately 280 feet from the switching station to the mobile home. Is that, to the best of your knowledge, accurate?
Yes.
Okay. And you were asked questions about the length of the transmission line. So let's kind of divide that up into two. You mentioned that from the generating site to the switch yard was approximately 500 feet. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then from the switch yard to existing KULG transmission lines, you mentioned, or it's been discussed in data responses, that there's two possible routes we might take. One that would go from the switching station to the east across, I guess that's Bean Cemetery Road, or one to the south across AC Slayton Road. Is that fair?
Well, or it could be some combination if we hook into, so those are double circuit lines. So we may hook into two different ways, and that's the final configuration won't be known until the study is completed.
Okay. In response to item 20 of the second request for information, we had indicated that if we go from the switch station south, it would be approximately 165 feet. And if we went to the west, it would be approximately 210 feet. Obviously, subject to final layout and design. As we're looking at it right now, that's the best numbers we can give. Is that fair?
That is fair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all the questions that I have. I know there were a few other outstanding items that I think that we might be able to get responses to if we consult with our team. But maybe at this point in time, we can move on past Mr. Baresh and bring him on the stand a little bit later, if that's acceptable.
Well, I was going to take a 10-minute break now, so
Okay.
maybe if you'd like to continue your redirect, or
That'd be fine.
we don't have to close that out.
Okay.
So I'll see everyone in 10 minutes. All right, we are back on the record in case number 2024-00290, electronic application of the Kentucky Municipal Energy Agency for a CPCN to construct electric generation in Madisonville, Kentucky. And I believe, Mr. Osterloh, thumbs up if you can hear me. Yeah, we were in the middle of your redirect.
Thank you. And I think Mr. Burrish is making his way back to his laptop right now. So if we could just have another minute, that would be great.
Yep. No problem. We've done some reconfiguring in here for, so I think it may work better for me to be seen and heard here in the
Okay,
courtroom.
great.
There he is. Mr. Burrish, I'll remind you that you're still under oath.
Yes.
Counsel, you may ask.
Thank you. And Mr. Burrish, we just wanted to cover a few other things. You had a few questions that we wanted to get some follow-up with our team on, one of which was communication with local neighbors or folks that own property adjoining the project site. Can you confirm that there have been at least 2 letters that have been sent out, both as a part of this siting board proceeding, one advising them of the public meeting that was held more than 90 days in advance of the application, as well as another one advising them that an application would be filed. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
And is it your understanding that those letters went out not only to property owners adjoining the generating site and the switchyard site, but also the planned pipeline route?
That's correct.
Okay. And you mentioned KYMEA is an interlocal agency, correct?
Yes,
And so that's considered a public agency under the Open Records Act? Is that correct?
it is. It is, yes.
So KYMEA would have to respond to any open records requests that were submitted by members of the public. Is that fair?
Yes, it is.
Okay. There was some discussion about the timing of the electric transmission interconnection studies. Can you clarify or modify anything that you need to on that?
Yeah, I misspoke before about the facility study. So we have 2 different studies going on, a provisional study and a cluster study. And I was referring to the cluster study for that we did not have a facility study that goes with it. We do have a facility study for the provisional. However, as my understanding now that both the facility study for both studies would be one and the same. So we wouldn't have a second facility study. So let me recap what I just said. There is a facility study that's initiated, and I answered before that there was not yet, but there is.
And we hope that to be a preliminary result of that to be when, do you know?
That would be probably in a few months as well. It's according to the tariff. They have a certain time period they have to respond within.
Okay. Switching gears to the depth of the gas line, do you know what that will be?
3 to 5 feet.
Okay. And you were also asked a question about construction costs that we've identified the whole project to be approximately $130 million. Of that $130 million, what do you anticipate the construction cost to be?
$50 million.
Thank you, sir. And Madam Chair, I believe that's all the questions that I have. Obviously, if there's something that we missed that we haven't addressed, we're happy to follow up as a post-hearing data response on any other issues.
That's fine, or if need be, we could always recall a witness.
Yep.
All right, you may call your next one.
Thank you. And our next witness is Tyler Marshall.
I apologize, one second. In light of that redirect, did staff or anyone else have recross? All right, forgive me, folks. Yes, please. Go ahead, counsel.
Thank you. Mr. Marshall, would you please, actually, I guess we need to swear you in first.
We sure do. If you'd raise your right hand to be sworn. Mr. Marshall, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is true and correct under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. May lower your hand and tell us your full name and business address, please.
My name is Tyler Marshall. I'm a principal environmental engineer with Stanley Consultants out of their Iowa City office, which is at 2658 Cross Park Road in Coralville, Iowa.
Okay.
Suite 100.
I'll remind all the participants online to mute their mics when they're not talking, and council, you may ask.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Marshall. Can you describe your involvement in this matter to the siting board?
So my primary specialty is environmental compliance and site development planning, and so I've been involved with this project at various phases throughout the project development, from the permitting analysis and preliminary site screening phase up through the development of the cumulative environmental assessment. And I've also worked with our West Turachek to review the contents on the decommissioning plan.
Okay. And so you mentioned that you had a role in the cumulative environmental assessment. Are you prepared to respond to questions regarding environmental issues or permitting here today?
Yes.
And likewise, you mentioned working with West Turachek on the decommissioning plan. Are you familiar with the reports that have been submitted on that issue?
Yes.
And are you prepared to respond to questions regarding a decommissioning plan here today?
Yes.
And you're not aware of any changes that need to be made to either the CEA or the decommissioning, are you?
No.
And those the information contained in those reports can be admitted as your testimony here today. Is that fair?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Madam Chair, this witness is available for questioning.
Okay, first, Ms. Carr?
No questions for this witness, Chair.
No questions for this witness? Okay. And Deputy Secretary Lyons?
Not so much a question, Madam Chair, but I did want to relay to all parties here that the Department of Environmental Protection has reviewed the cumulative environmental assessment, and that has been delivered to Ms. Carr this morning. I looked it over. I did not see any issues pertaining to it. Just kind of some standard comments from Department of Environmental Protection. So that has been completed by DEP. That's all I have, Madam.
Okay. Mr. Hammack?
Any questions for this witness? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. And Ms. Wyatt? Any questions? You were muted, but I think you said no, thank you. Okay. And Commissioner Stacy?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay. And I don't believe I have questions of this witness either. Mr.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I did have one thing I wanted to confirm with Mr. Marshall. I apologize.
No problem at all. Please go ahead.
Mr. Marshall, can you confirm that there will be a stream mitigation payment? I think I saw that in the record. Can you speak to that? Because I think you're all taking a certain length of stream for the plant.
Yes, so there is a Corps of Engineers designated ephemeral stream that runs through the site and a connected wetland area. And the intention is to mitigate the impacts to both of those through purchases through, I believe it's the McNary Mitigation Bank. And the number of credits has been calculated and the credit value. I don't believe that has been finalized yet. The permit applications have been submitted to the Corps of Engineers for the 401, 404 permits. I presume that the contracts with the mitigation bank would follow that approval.
Also, is there any bat mitigation
Yes.
funds that need to be addressed?
Yeah, similarly, there will be the removal of, I believe, about 4 acres and change of potential bat habitat trees, and so there was a mitigation cost calculation, I believe, is around $11,000 that will be made to a third party that specializes in bat habitat.
And there were no other involved species, if I looked at the IPAC correctly.
Yeah, so it was, there were a number of species identified, but really the primary ones would have been gray bat, Indiana bat, and through the consultation with Fish and Wildlife, that's how we arrived at the mitigation dollar amount.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. No other questions, Madam
Okay.
Chair.
And Mr. Marshall, you could also speak to decommissioning issues?
Mhm.
Okay. Just one, really. I saw the estimate to decommission is about $420,000 and a extensive list of what all was to be decommissioned. Will the substation remain in place? That'll be deeded away from your company, right? As far as you know, that's not being decommissioned?
That is correct. That's my understanding is that the decommissioning plan has a vision of the generation site basically being returned to kind of a blank slate sort of status, but the substation itself with the switching equipment would continue to remain useful for any future uses of the site as well as the surrounding community, and so that is intended to remain as is.
Okay. We're so familiar with solar sites and those
I
decommissioning
know.
plans. This one was a little unusual for us. And
Yep.
and I guess as a municipal agency-owned generation, there's not necessarily an application to retire that would need to be submitted to the PSC? Is that how it works?
I'm not sure on the nuts and bolts of that. We would have to get back to you on that.
Oh, okay.
Your Honor, as a matter of law, that's my understanding as well, that it would not have to be submitted to the Public Service Commission.
Gotcha. Okay. And so just the decommissioning will involve whenever this plant is retired, but not necessarily the substation. Okay. Well, that's all the questions I have. If there's nothing further, is there any reason why this witness couldn't be excused? Okay, counsel, call your next witness.
Thank you. And next witness is Jeremy James. And I know Mr. James was having video difficulties earlier, but looks like you have stuff working now.
Yep.
Mr. James, welcome. Please raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is true and correct under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Okay. You may lower your hand and tell us your full name and business address.
My name is Jeremy James. Business address is 100 Court Avenue, Suite 300, Des Moines, Iowa, 50311.
Okay, counsel.
Thank you. Mr. James, by whom are you employed?
Stanley Consultants.
And what is your job
Otherwise
title
known as
there?
Stanley Group. Yeah. My job title is Senior Environmental Scientist.
And can you describe to the siting board what your involvement has been in this case and project?
My main involvement has been with the air permitting associated with the project and completing the permitting application and any discussions with Division of Air Quality.
Okay. And you sponsored responses to data requests in this matter, is that correct?
Yes.
Do you have any changes or corrections to those responses?
No, I don't.
And do you adopt that information as your testimony here today?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Madam Chair, this witness is available for examination.
Okay, first we'll go to Ms. Carr.
Just a couple of questions. Can you please describe the air permitting process that this project has undergone?
Sure. So, to begin with, we went over the potential emissions from the project, and that was done using calculations provided by the manufacturer, emission data provided by them, to determine our potential emissions for the project, and then we applied for the associated permit, which in this case is it's called a Title V operating permit.
Where is your Title V? Where is this project in that process as far as receiving a Title V permit?
Discussions are still being actively had with Division of Air Quality. As at this point, we've provided all of the information they had requested, and I don't want to speak on their behalf, but their latest estimation was that a draft permit would be available in March.
No further questions.
Okay. Deputy Secretary Lyons?
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. Good morning, Mr. James. Since this siting board hasn't really dealt with a permitted source like this in the past few years, and this site is, in a populated area rather close to Madisonville, I've looked at the emissions profile, and of course, I understand it. I was air quality director for 12 years, but can you give everybody kind of a synopsis of the emissions that will be coming from the plant and how those are controlled?
Sure. So I guess because these engines are running on natural gas, typical pollutants associated with natural gas engines would be nitrogen oxides and carbon monoxide, along with hazardous air pollutants like formaldehyde. And Crimea has elected to control those emissions by applying additional control equipment to the engines. This includes selective catalytic reduction, which is intended to reduce the nitrogen oxides. And they'll also be installing a oxidation or CO catalyst, which helps control carbon monoxide and hazardous air pollutants like formaldehyde.
And those pollution control measures are rather common and would find those on many different types of facilities in industry, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all I have.
Okay. Mr. Hammack?
Madam Chair, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Wyatt? I think we might have lost her. I'll go ahead and ask if Commissioner Stacy has questions.
No, ma'am, I don't have any questions this time.
Okay. And I don't either have questions of this witness. If Ms. White comes back on, I'll ask her again. But in the meantime, I'll go ahead and maybe not quite excuse this witness yet, just in case Ms. White had a question, but ask you to stand by. And Mr. Osterloh, if you want to go ahead and call your next witness. You're on mute, Mr. Osterloh.
Sorry, on mute. Thank you. Our next witness is Dave Parsick.
Hello there, Mr. Parsick. Am I pronouncing your name correctly? You're on mute.
Yes, you are.
Okay. Please raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is true and correct under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Okay. And tell us your full name and business address.
My full name is David Parsick. Business address is 2730 Northampton Avenue, Orlando, Florida, 32828.
All right. Counsel, you may ask.
Thank you. Good morning, sir. Can you state by whom you are employed?
Power Acoustics, Inc.
And what is your title there?
I am President and Principal Acoustical Consultant.
And can you describe to the siting board what your involvement has been in this project?
Yeah, we did the ambient noise measurements and did the sound modeling of the operating plant, the projected operating plant, and the projected noise from construction.
And you drafted and reports or a report that has been submitted and I believe updated in this matter. Is that correct?
Yes, we did do a report initially, and then we sent a addendum that included the noise from the pipeline construction and the construction of the let's see, what did we do? We did the pipeline construction in the
switching station.
Switchyard. That's what it was. Yes.
And Likewise, did you sponsor responses to data requests in this matter?
Yes.
Do you have any changes or corrections to either the reports that have been submitted or the responses to the data requests that have not otherwise been provided?
No, they're as accurate as I know at this point in time.
And do you adopt that information as your testimony here today?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Madam Chair, this witness is available for questioning.
Okay, first, Ms. Clark?
Just one question for you. What noise mitigation methods can be used as far as the natural gas transmission line, as far as that construction part, to help mitigate the noise level for the local residents there?
Well, during construction, we have not have any noise abatement that's built in other than the equipment itself. We'll have mufflers. There's mostly diesel equipment for moving dirt and things like that and laying the pipeline. And they will have, updated mufflers and, everything will be working as it's supposed to. But there isn't any noise abatement that's built in as far as additional noise abatement as along the pipeline during the construction.
The ultimate, when you look at the actual noise level that's going for the construction of the natural gas pipeline, how would that compare to, like, if you want to give the siting board an example of some other common day noise equivalents? What would you compare that to?
It's kind of the typical kind of a construction equipment that you would hear on any construction site, or basically, if they were building a house next door to you, there's going to be diesel equipment, and the diesel equipment all is more or less about the same. If you've listened to a bulldozer, for instance, at 50 feet, it may have sound levels that are in the 80-ish dBA range, 80 plus. And the typical equipment that's going to be used to build this pipeline or any of the portions of this project are in that same range. So it's going to be, typical sounds that you've heard from typical diesel equipment.
No further questions, Chair.
Okay. Deputy Secretary Lyons?
Just one clarification, Mr. Parzak, you did not do a noise study on the plant itself? Is that correct?
No, we did do a study on the plant itself, and that was in
Okay.
the main first report that we did.
Okay, I thought so. I thought I'd read that in the record, and I was a little confused about the testimony regarding the construction of the pipeline. So I did read that study, and I was very interested in how you went about determining the noise levels that were going to come from this plant. And that is one thing in particular I was concerned about. I've been around long enough to remember when the Bluegrass Station for East Kentucky Power was built in Oldham County many years ago, and I realized that equipment's probably different and the plant's different, but each one of these engines will have their own stack. That's correct. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So if you could just give us a summary of what type of noise levels are going to be emitted from those stacks and what that would compare to, and the distances to nearby residents and the impact or the lack thereof from the running of the engines, if you will.
Well, the individual stacks, I have the report next to me, so let me just take a look at what we said, because we're getting into details here. I guess it's well into the report.
I just didn't see any conclusions per se necessarily when I was reviewing it.
We're getting there. It's just taking a while here. Okay. So sound level estimates, in table 7.2, there is sound level estimates of a base option at location M2. M2 is location L2 or M2 on any of the reports, which happens to be somewhere around 2,000 feet away and without any silencing on it. This would be a totally base design plant. The levels would be about in the low 60s, like 62 dBA at 2,000 feet. So they'd be pretty substantial if there wasn't a silencer on it. But there's options to put silencers on these engines, and we've put a fairly high attenuation silencer. It's called a 45 dBA silencer, which reduces the noise supposedly by 45 dBA, but that's based on a particular spectrum. But the sound at that same location after the silencers were put on was dropped to 31 dB from each piece of each stack, exhaust stack. So it brings the sound levels from the stack way down once you add the silencers to it.
I see that table. And what is the recommended sound levels from the regulatory recommended sound levels? Is it 45 dBA?
Well, like what FERC has for like pipelines, things like that would be 48.6 is what they would require. So if we were to use levels that would be, comparable to what FERC recommends or requires, it would be 48.6. There's various different criterion from different organizations that say, have different levels based on, whether or not there's going to be moderate annoyances or high level annoyances or, what you'd expect. But the FERC requirements, 48.6, World Health says a moderate annoyance would be about 50 dBA.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
All right, Mr. Hammack?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, and let's see, is Ms. Wyatt back on? Don't see her right now. Commissioner Stacy?
Thank you. No questions. Thank you.
And I think it's been covered, as far as I'm concerned, too. Any reason why this witness couldn't be excused?
Madam Chair, just scrolling through, I do believe Ms. Wyatt is back on. Looks like she's still on mute, though. No, there we go.
Ms. Wyatt, any questions?
She may be having some audio. The video that I can see, the mute button came off as if we would be able to hear her, but she was talking and we couldn't hear her.
Okay, I don't see her on my screen. Ms. Wyatt, if you can hear me, my email address is angie.hatton, Hatton, @ky.gov. And if at any time you need to interrupt me or need to communicate with me about your signal or anything else like that, just email me directly and I will make sure that your needs get met. Again, angie.hatton @ky.gov. And you also have, I believe, Ms. Carr's email as well, just in case I miss one. But we'll be watching for you in case you need to communicate with us. And until I hear from her, I think we'll go ahead and.
And if can I do a couple follow-up very briefly?
I forgot you again.
That's all right. I'll interject when I need to. Thank you. Mr. Parzik, just a couple real quick questions. A lot of the responses that we provided based on the questioning, particularly with construction noise levels, was based on a worst case scenario. Is that fair?
That is true.
And how do you interpret that, meaning worst case scenario?
The worst case scenario is all this equipment makes different levels of noise in different types of operation, and the information that's available is called maximum noise, or the maximum noise each individual piece of equipment could make at any worst case scenario, if you will, the maximum noise that it makes. If you're talking cement mixers, it would be when when they were revving up the engines and turning the mixture. If you're talking bulldozers, it's when they're at full power conditions, things like that, not idling. So worst case scenario is you take all this equipment and you assume that it's all making this worst case noise all at the same time. And that would be the worst case scenario. If you end up having a real life situation, that all doesn't occur. It's all happens randomly. So typically you would end up having sound levels from this construction equipment that would be on average of probably about 10 dB less, because you have a lot of equipment, operating and assumed all operating at the same time. So you, when you take out the chances of it all happening at the max worst condition, it just becomes a much quieter situation than what's projected.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Okay. Any recross by anyone? Seeing none, Mr. Parzik, you're excused, and council will call your next witness.
Thank you. Our next witness is Josh Coburn.
Hello, Mr.
Hello.
Coburn. Please raise your right hand to
Hello.
be sworn. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is true and correct under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Okay. Lower your hand, please, and tell us your full name and business address.
My name is Josh Coburn, and my address is 400 Shoppers Drive, Winchester, Kentucky, 40391.
All right. I'd remind everybody to mute your microphones if you're not intending to speak to all of us, and counsel, you may ask.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Coburn. Could you
Morning.
please state by whom you were employed?
I work for Palmer Engineering as a project manager.
Okay. And can you describe your involvement in this particular project?
Yes, we were tasked with completing a traffic impact study that looked at what traffic conditions would be expected during construction phasing.
Okay. And you helped prepare that report that was submitted to the siting board in this case?
Yes,
And I believe it's been updated a time or two. Is that fair?
correct.
Okay. And did you sponsor responses to data requests in this case?
Yes.
Do you have any changes or corrections to that information that's been provided to the siting board that those changes haven't otherwise been identified?
No, sir.
And do you adopt that information as your testimony here today?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Madam Chair, this witness is available for questioning.
Okay. So first to Ms. Carr.
What is your overall conclusion as far as the impact that this project will have on the traffic in this area?
So, sort of the industry standard is something called a level of service. And that's going to be sort of like a letter grade, sort of like you get in school, A, B, C, D, E, F. And in this case, everything was a level of service A or B. And so based on that falls well inside sort of what they would consider acceptable conditions. So although there will be some minor impact, there's no expectations that it will fall below sort of the industry standard of acceptable.
No further questions, Chair.
Okay. Deputy Secretary Lyons.
No questions, Madam Chair.
Okay. Mr. Hammock?
Thank you.
Ms. Wyatt? Commissioner Stacy?
What happens during the meeting?
Okay. I don't have any questions of this witness either. Any reason why this, what about redirect?
No redirect. Thank you.
I did better. All right. Any reason why this witness couldn't be excused? All right. Mr. Coburn, you're excused.
Thank you.
And unless somebody tells me we need a break, I think I would like to go ahead and power through the next couple witnesses. All right. Not seeing any requests in the room. All right. Mr. Osterloh, you may call your next witness.
Thanks. I'm actually going to turn it over to Ms. Price for the next two witnesses.
All right. Good morning, Ms. Price, and please call your witness.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next, I'll call Dr. Paul Coombs.
Hi there, Mr. Coombs. You're on mute. There we go.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Please raise your right hand to be sworn. And I called you Mr. Coombs. I apologize, Dr. Coombs.
Sorry.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is true and correct under penalty of perjury?
I do.
All right, counsel, you may ask.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Coombs, good morning. Would you please state by whom you were employed and what is your business title?
So I'm a consulting economist, retired economics professor from the University of Louisville. So I'm just a consultant if you're asking for a title.
Thank you. How have you been involved with the development of the KYMEA Energy Center 1 project?
So I was engaged to make some estimates of the economic and fiscal impact of basically the construction and the operations phase. And so I wrote a report that gave a summary of the sort of economic conditions in the county as a sort of background context, and then used models and some tax rate data to make projections of likely job and labor income and tax impacts in Hopkins County.
And was that economic impact report you mentioned filed in this case?
Yes.
And did you sponsor responses to data requests in this matter?
Yes.
And do you adopt the information that you previously submitted in this case as your testimony today?
I do.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This witness is available for questioning.
Thank you. Ms. Carr?
No question for this witness.
Okay. Deputy Secretary?
No questions, Madam Chair.
Mr. Hammock?
Thank you for joining us. I just had one quick question. I've looked through the report and I'm satisfied, but I was wondering which models you used for looking at that tax base and that forecast.
So since this is a nonprofit, the property tax issue that we usually get into, for example, on the solar projects, it's moot in this case, so they will not be liable for property taxes. So that makes things much simpler. And I believe they are making a payment in lieu of taxes to help the local government compensate for, general services. So the only thing left that I could see that was material were the occupational taxes. And in this case, Madisonville, the city of Madisonville has a pretty significant occupational tax rate of 2.5%. And then the county stacks another 0.5% on that. So you're up to 3%. So to the extent to which this project generates a lot of payroll, there should be some significant money coming into the city and county coffers from the occupational tax.
Thank you. Those are all the questions I have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Wyatt? Commissioner Stacy?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay. I have one, Dr. Coombs. Regarding the property tax, I understand that KYMEA is a not-for-profit entity, but they intend to deed part of this project, the area where the substation is located, over to LG and EKU, and I imagine there's going to be a pretty substantial increase in property value by the time that gets transferred once the substation is built. Is that something that was factored into your study?
It was not in my study, but I believe it came up in one of the follow-up questions that I'm scrolling now, trying to remember if we made an estimate or not. But you're correct. I just can't remember the amount of property taxes likely to be generated.
Okay. Well, a positive impact anyway.
Certainly, yeah. Yeah, that property is not exempt.
Okay. Any redirect, Mr. Osterloh? Oh, sorry, Ms. Price.
No, Madam Chair, and we would be happy to direct the citing board to that specific data response in a post-hearing request if need be.
Okay, if we need that. All right. Any recross? All right. Any reason why this witness couldn't be excused? Seeing none, Dr. Coombs, thanks for being with us again.
Thank you.
You're free to go.
All right.
And that brings us to, I believe, the final witness for the applicant. Ms. Price, will you be handling that witness as well?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Please call your witness.
We would call Richard Kirkland.
Hello, Mr. Kirkland.
Good morning.
Please raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is true and correct under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Okay. Tell us your full name and business address.
Richard Kirkland, 9408 Northfield Court, Raleigh, North Carolina, 27603.
All right. Counsel, may I ask?
Good morning, Mr. Kirkland. By whom are you employed?
Kirkland Appraisals,
And what is your title?
owner.
And how have you been involved with the development of this energy center project?
I was asked to complete an impact analysis on adjoining property values.
And did you prepare a report for the property value analysis that was filed in this case?
I did.
And did you sponsor responses to data requests in this matter?
I did.
And do you adopt the information that you previously submitted in this case as your testimony today?
I do.
Madam Chair, this witness is available for questioning.
Okay. Ms. Carr.
Mr. Kirkland, how is your process that led you to your ultimate conclusion different from this case, which is a rice facility, versus the one that you would typically use in your solar case?
Well, the process is essentially the same. We do impact analysis on lots of things other than solar, and we do them all around. I mean, essentially, we're looking at a similar project, whether it's solar or the rice facility or a rock quarry or a school or a church. We're looking at similar properties, and we're looking at sales activity around those similar projects. So the solar data that you see me present is a larger data set just because I've been working on that for about 15 years, whereas the rice facility is a smaller data set, partly because there's fewer facilities for me to look at. But also I've been looking at it for a shorter period of time. But we still have a significant amount of data in the report, and we had a significant number of sales of homes around it where we were able to do both resale analysis, which is what I consider to be the best approach because it uses essentially zero appraiser judgment. It just looks at a sale before and after an existing rice plant was built of the exact same home, and we just match that home sale appreciation between the first sale before the rice plant and after. We match it just to the FHFA home price index. So there's no appraiser judgment involved. But at the same time, we also reach out to the brokers and confirm what their experience was with marketing and sales near those projects. And we've also done paired sales analysis, which is where you compare the home that sold near a rice facility and compared it to several nearby homes that are further away and not near it, but still sold in the same time frame and have similar characteristics. So we really have kind of three tests that we've shown here in the report, looking at sales activity around these and, again, showing no impact on property values.
What was your ultimate conclusion after you completed your study as far as the proximity and the property value in regards to the natural gas transmission line?
So specifically to the gas line, we've looked at gas lines before. At the distances we're talking about, we have no concerns about property value impacts. We typically look at property where the gas line's actually touching and crossing the line for these kind of questions. So when their distance is 190 feet or in that range, there's no concerns about property value impacts.
No further questions, Chair.
Okay. And Deputy Secretary Lyons.
No questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Hammack,
Madam Chair, thank you.
Ms. Wyatt, Commissioner Stacy.
No, ma'am.
And I don't have questions for this witness either. Any redirect?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, and in that case, does anyone have any reason why this witness couldn't be excused? All right, Mr. Kirkland, you're excused. And to the extent that I've had anyone else hanging on the line, waiting to see if we had further questions, you're also excused. And I believe that concludes your witnesses, Ms. Price and Mr. Osterloh?
That is correct. Yes.
Anything further at this time from the applicant?
Not that I know of. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not aware of any exhibits that weren't introduced.
No, Chair.
Okay, and any motions at this time?
None from us, no.
Okay, I think our final order is due April 7th, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, and if we're going to have any further requests for information, could we have those out by February 24th?
Yes.
February 24th? And then responses by March 3rd?
That should be
Objections?
sufficient. Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Yes.
Does anybody anticipate the need for a brief in this case?
I don't believe so, Your Honor.
Okay. If we do, simultaneous by February 26th.
Okay.
Well, there's not even any interveners, so if you want to file a brief, Mr. Osterloh, February 26th. All right, it's been a pleasure. I hope everyone is safe and warm and off dangerous and hazardous roads, if at all possible today. And if there's nothing further, we'll adjourn.
Thank you, Madam Chair.